Good evening to those who are at the east, Professor Cheng. Now we began this session on Lesson Learned with a keynote speak given by Professor Xiaotao Cheng from Resource Management. I want to say exactly the name of the body. It's the China Institute of Water Resources and Hydropower Research. And we also have to say thank you to Professor Guosheng from Emergency Management Ministry, which is also supporting this keynote speech. So, Professor, you will speak about the resources, the food resources endangered by floods and storms. And of course, this supply chain is a very sensible one. And we have to organize some provisions, some capacity building, and also to do more safety and more resilience in the supply chain. So it will be very interesting to hear you, Professor Cheng. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This presentation prepared by Professor Xu and I, and my major is flood risk management. He is in the field of emergency response. So the title is the New Characteristic of Flood Risk and Emergency Capacity Strengthening and the Changing Environment. For the changing environments, people always mentioned the global warming, its effect on flood risk characteristics today really cannot be ignored, because global warming increases the probability of extreme weather events and established flood control systems and emergency response systems have to face. So they say, I say that for the global warming, people always understand the effects on flood risk characteristics cannot be ignored. This year in July, usual heavy rains hit Western Europe, and more than 229 fatalities and 30 billion euro damage caused by dike breach and flooding, and among the worst hit part. So more than 153 millimeters of rain on July 14 is 6 times higher than the average heavy rainfall days for the year area in July. Similar case in China also happened. This figure shows rainfall distribution of map last year from July the 1st to 11th. So the rainfall in Jiangxi province around the Poyang Lake, this is the cities around the lake. The accumulated rainfall also several times higher than the historic mean rainfall for the same period. And meanwhile, the annual precipitation of Chaohu Lake in Anhui province, you can see this figure. The annual precipitation, this is also higher than that since 1960s, and the water level process of the Chaohu Lake have the new record. But today, what I hope to talk is the abnormal weather system affecting China in July. The daily rainfall of 20 meteorological stations in Zhengzhou, Xinxiang, Hebi, and Anyang, that exceeds the historic maximum. The maximum daily 1 hour rainfall in Zhengzhou station is more than 200 millimeters, and the daily rainfall is 624 millimeters, which is close to the annual rainfall, and more than 3 times of the maximum daily rainfall in the past. So I will show you some basic characteristics of this extremely rainfall flood in Henan. The rainfall over 400 millimeters, 250 millimeter, and 100 millimeter poured down onto areas of 18,300 square kilometers, 46,300 kilometers, and 96,200 square kilometers, respectively. Continuous heavy rains caused widespread flooding in rivers in Henan province. A total of more than 10 rivers in the province were flooded over the warning level. Among them, some sections of the rivers experienced the highest level of flooding in history. So in this table, I show some examples. The highest water level this year, that's higher than the record in history. But the interesting thing is for some of them, I have this with the red color. You see the maximum discharge, that's less than the maximum one in the history. So this is also the phenomenon we say due to the changing environment. Then people experienced severe tests in the flood fighting. I show some pictures here. There's a Weihe River. The dike breach occurred once in July 22 and closed on July 26, that's 4 days later. And another one, breach appeared in Gongqu Canal near Muye bridges in Weihui city. So this closed 2 days later. The Weihui city were inundated 70%, with the water level about 1.5 meters, 2 meters. So to avoid the Xinxiang County town to become the second Weihui, people built the temporary deck like this, about 1.5 meters higher. That's several kilometers longer. Very hard work. And the pressure and the difficulty of reservoir operation. As of 8 on July 23, to the total amount of water stored in 24 large reservoirs and 102 medium-sized reservoirs in Henan province reached 5.74 billion cubic meters and 1.23 billion cubic meters respectively. Among them, the highest water level of 14 reservoirs, including Panstewan, etc., exceeded the all-time high since the reservoirs were built. And the maximum inflow of Changzhuang and Jiangang reservoirs, these two, on the upper reach of the Jialu River, this is through the central part of the Zhenzhong. The inflow is these two dams reduced the inflow from 900 cubic meters to 564 meters, and another one reduced the peak discharge from 1,000 to 64 cubic meters respectively. That's reduced the pressure of the city. Unfortunately, the Typhoon Yinfa landed in Zhejiang on July 24. In order to face a new round of heavy rains, all dams have to be required to reduce the reservoir water level below the flood limits level. That increased the flood fighting pressure in the middle and the lower reach of the rivers involved. From July 21 to 38 out of the 9 flood storage and detention area in Weihe Basin, this low land were successfully put into use with a maximum flood storage capacity of 959 million cubic meters, effectively lowering the water level of the Weihe and its tributaries. So it's a very difficult case. So here I show some pictures I took the flooded areas. This show the serious damage caused by flash flood. This destroyed the road and the house, and the flash floods threatened the safety of the main canal of the middle road of the south to north water diversion projects that send the water from Danjiangkou Reservoir to Beijing. And the agriculture suffered heavy losses also. And the flooded enterprises faced the dilemma of a capital chain and industrial chain interruption. And this figure I took in Weihe City, the flood garbage disposal becomes a big problem in flood cities. So now let's discuss the evolution characteristics of flood risk and the changing environments. The extraordinary rainstorm and flood disaster in Henan province this time, on the one hand, reflected this erupted weather system associated with global warming, which is more likely to cause extreme flood events. On the other hand, it also reflects the impact of rapid economic development and urbanization on flood risk characteristics. When the super heavy rain fell on a huge and rapidly expanding city with a population of more than 10 million, its threat object, the disaster mechanism, disaster model, and the loss composition changed dramatically, and the flood risk presents the characteristic of linkage, mutation, and transmissibility. Due to increased dependence on the normal operation of modern societies on transportation, communication, power supply, water supply, and other lifeline network systems, the closer and wider industrial chain formed with economic development. In the event of extensive flooding, the chain reaction within and between the affected system causes a sudden increase in disaster losses, and its influence range can be transmitted far beyond the flooded area along with the lifeline system and the industrial chain. And one more factor we have to consider is the effect of rapid urbanization. So Zhengzhou, the capital city of the Henan province, covers an area of 7,567 square kilometers. It's located on the south bank of the Yellow River and the strait of the Yellow River and the Huaihe River basins, with 27% and 70% respectively of Zhengzhou being in these two basins. It's straddled Songshan Mountain and low mountain areas and hills and the Huanghuai Plains. So the topography is higher on the west and lower in the east. By 2020, the permanent resident population of Zhengzhou had reached 12.6 million, increasing by nearly 4 million just in 10 years. Its total urbanized area has increased by 700 square kilometers, and the area of water and the wetland decreased by about 30%. With the expansion of the urban area, some flood channels outside the city have become the city's internal rivers. That increases the risk of flash flood entering the city from the southwest. western mountains and hills areas. The post-disaster reconstruction were adversely affected by epidemic prevention. So, for this, so a nuclear positive case was found in Zhengzhou on July 30, and a further 12 local cases and 20 symptomatic cases were detected on July 31. So 1 high-risk residential district and 3 medium-risk residential districts were forced into lockdown, and ceased from Zhengzhou was also strictly controlled. That doubly creates the danger obstructed to post-disaster reconstruction. With the efficient organization by governments at all levels, through great support from all over the country, power supply had been basically restored 1,194 residential areas by July 30. That's 10 days, cost 10 days. Water supply completely restored 1,064 residential areas by August the 1st, and the gas supply restored in 111 residential areas by August 2. All 5 subway lines in the cities resumed their operation in 2 phases on September 12th and 15th. That's 55 days later. So then we summarize the evolution characteristic of trend of flood risk, compare the traditional society and the modern society, threatened objects, the disaster causing mechanism, disaster framing pattern, and components of losses and the features of flood risk. So today, all the features in traditional societies have still exists, but add some new features. So discussion on countermeasures against the extreme flood and the new situation. In recent years, extreme disaster events have occurred frequently, and uncertainties has increased, with warn us that the trend of flood risk in the context of climate warming and rapid urbanization should be recognized, and that we should coordinate development and the security, improve risk prevention and emergency response systems, and strengthen the resilience of urban centers and other residential areas to adapt to and withstand catastrophes. After occurrence of this huge flood disaster in Henan province, widespread concern was expressed about how to prevent and deal with extreme rainstorms flood in China. Discussions began in some cities such as Beijing, Wuhan, Fuzhou, Shenzhen, and Kunming on what kind of disaster scenario would occur if the heavy rainfall of 200 millimeters per hour fell on their hand, and the actions were proposed for risk prevention and emergency response. So this figure shows this the rapid expansion of cities, not only the Zhengzhou, but also other cities. So then we say for the risk, we can improve our work in 6 aspects. That's the risk identification, dangers perception, fighting emergency response, dangers endurance, and resilience reconstruction. That's all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much. That's very interesting to see the threat on the supply chain of food. Food is life, and with these storms, with climate change, we witness some unprecedented things. And when I see 800 millimeters of water, that's an incredible amount for us in Europe. In South Europe, the highest score we had is 450 in one day in Mediterranean area, but not so much. So it's a very really interesting and very unprecedented description, this storm in Zhengzhou. So thank you very much. I'd like to introduce now we will postpone, as we did this morning, the question at the end of the session, because it allocates times for the person attending to write them in the Q&A tool, or to write the question physically at the end. So we will take 15 minutes at the end of the session. So I introduce now Chris Sagoe. Chris Sagoe, which is is representing the National University of Lesotho, and his paper is now on COVID and crisis management COVID, and if I well understood, it's also on communication during this crisis to inform the person and the communities about good use of medicine or not. That's a very interesting topic, because with the communication and the social network, we could see in our country this kind of misuse or misinformation. So please, Chris, the floor is yours, and we are very interested in your paper.
Thank you very much. And my name is Christopher Sagoe. Actually, I used to be at the National University of Lesotho, but recently I moved to the University of Botswana. And I'm presenting this paper with my other two colleagues, one in Ghana, another one also here. And our topic is on research into the potential links between COVID-19 misinformation and mismedication in the Kingdom of Lesotho. And the presentation will start with the introduction, objectives, materials and methods, overview of COVID situation in Lesotho, and the theory that we use, the protection motivation theory, will also be used. Will also be explained, and we come to the medicinal plant usage among the rural folks in Lesotho, findings and conclusions. To start, we'll say that the spread of misinformation about COVID-19 pandemic causes fear and panic among the rural folks in Lesotho. We can see that when we enter the internet, there are so many conspiracy theories on how COVID-19 came about. Some were giving so many things and whatever, and creating so many fear. Even some are saying that it is something that was intentionally created in a laboratory in Wuhan to kill people in this world, okay? So when this happens, it really affects so many people. And to be able to explain this better, we are using the motivation protection theory, okay, which talks about threat information creates fear and panic and make people resort to easily available and cheap resources to deal with the threats. As by Rogers in 1970, as by Rogers in 1975, yes. This has made the rural folks in Lesotho resort to unscientific use of medicinal plants, which in this case represent the mismedication to treat or to prevent themselves from getting the COVID disease. So this has become important for this study to be done, because the rural folk, you know, they make the largest chunk of the population of Lesotho. And at the same time, you know, when COVID really came in, attention has been on fixing the economic damages as has been caused by COVID-19, GDP falling, jobs losing, and other things. So little has been a little attention has been paid on this. And you could see that the WHO has also published that when people use these things to prevent themselves, especially those that they inhale and other things, it affects the strength of the lungs, and that also affects medication. So the lung strength, you know, comes down, and that also affects, especially when they even get COVID, the treatment they give them, even it becomes very difficult because the lung has already been affected by some of these substances that entered. So this then became the motivation of the study. So this time we're going to look into the objectives, the sources of information and perceptions that people get on COVID-19, especially the rural folks, and we also look into the various medications that they use in doing this. We use the qualitative study, for this work, and we described, we used the descriptive phenomenological research studies to study, because we were more in touch with the people to look into so many things. And we only took 50 folks, rural folks, in all the 10 districts of Lesotho. You know, we went to some selected villages to do this. And the study instruments, we used the semi-structured interview so that we could ask probing questions and other things. So we left some of the questions, you know, open so that we can probe further and get certain things. And we also used the data was analyzed using thematic analysis. We tried to look into the strengths. If there's building a story or something, we try to use that to develop our story, and then we come out with it. So now we have the overview of the COVID situation. COVID, you know, has, you know, it came in Lesotho in June 15th, 2020. They confirmed 4 cases. I think it's the last African country to get a COVID case reported officially. And since then, government has taken so many measures. Some of them are lockdowns and whatever, just as other countries are doing. But also, one thing that I would like to make it critically clear here is that Lesotho is vulnerable to COVID-19 because of its closeness to South Africa. It's the countries in the stomach of, or in the belly of South Africa. It's surrounded north, south, east, and west. Everywhere is South Africa. So, you know, South Africa, we know the current situation, even the Omicron, different variants, people dying, and so many. And then this Lesotho's economy is also well integrated in the economy of South Africa. So they are very, very, they share so many economic wise and everything. People cross easily to South Africa, come back, even to go and shop and do so many things in South Africa. So, and most of the citizens in Lesotho even go to South Africa to work and even come back like that. They commute almost every day. So this makes it vulnerable to them in terms of this. And also Lesotho has a very weak health, you know, system. You know, their healthcare system is also very weak. And according to the infectious disease vulnerability index, it is below 40. So these are measures to tell you the situation of Lesotho. And as the also cases are going up, and then people are also dying. So now we're going to explain the protection motivation theory, which really became the basis for this study. This study is also, this theory is telling us that risk, when information comes to a particular group of people, this is what happens. The people look into the severity of the information that is coming to us. For example, COVID has come, it's killing people and whatever. And now even in South Africa, it's killing so many people. So once the person hears this, you see that this message is very severe. You get, they assess the severity of the information. The whole world, it has affected so many countries and those things. And then we also look into our vulnerability. How vulnerable are we to this? If it's killing these people in this country, even with better opportunities and better healthcare and whatever, even the Americans are dying and these things, then who are we? They, as a small country with, you know, little opportunities and these things. So they see themselves more vulnerable, and this creates fear in them. Fear and then panic rushes into the system. And then once that thing comes in, people are ready to look for any opportunity to protect themselves from getting or being hammered down by that particular risk. So in this case, the people look for coping strategies. And when they are looking for coping strategies, they look for these things: response efficacy and self-efficacy. Is the method that we're going to use, is it strong enough to face that risk? Does it have the capacity to protect us from getting that particular disease, which in this case, which is COVID-19? And then do we also look into self-efficacy in themselves? Do we have the capability, the strength, and other things to get this particular thing? Okay, can we prepare those medicines and those things ourselves and those things? And have we also used it? Does it also work out for us? You get it. So once these things comes in, then there is also another part that the people also look out for: the cost. The cost, not only monetary, also availability. Is it available? And those things. So all these things come in, and then these people, because of the low income aspects of the rural folks in Lesotho, and because of cultural issues, because they have been, if you look into the literature, I'll present so many things to tell you that treating people with herbs in Lesotho it's not a new thing. It's something that has been handed over from generation to generation. So it has rooted into their culture, you see. So now they have so many knowledge on medicines and locally prepared concoctions and other things from plants and other things that they can use to treat themselves. So they see these things to be one, cost-effective, one, because they don't need to pay for these herbs, and two, the leaves and other things, plants and those things, they are readily available in their community, so they can fetch them and then prepare it themselves without going for any form of treatment. And also, so now I moved on to some of the medicinal plants already there in the literature has put some of, I don't think this will present very well. I was struggling to drop it, but it's very clear in the report. So I think later I'll share the report. So now we see the various things that they use. They use some of them are garlic. I've even provided the botanical name. We have a Seholobe and Lengana. And these are some of the local names of, and then Fati Ngaka. You know, they all have their botanical names and other things there, so that it will be very good for people to see this. For example, Lengana is used for cold and flu issues, and they use the leaves, and they always cook the fresh leaves and other things and drink it. And also the Fati Nganga, it's also for cold and boosting immunity. And then they use the whole plant, and then they cook also the plant, and then also use it to drink and other things. And so that is what I've presented here. And so now we go to the discussion. We saw that we took 50-50 male, 50% females, married. Education, we saw that no education is 30%. So they have very low educational levels, and also unemployment is 40%. And then we saw the 10% to be farmers, and 10% to be students, and then farmers is 20%. I think, I don't know how the 5 came instead of, that was an omission. Sorry for that. So now let's see the sources of information. We feel that all participants dependent on information from close people such as friends and families to understand, family members, to understand what COVID disease is and how it spread. It was observed that most of the sources used by the participants to get information on the COVID-19 pandemic were from unverified sources and then untrusted sources, which comes with high risk of what? Misinformation. Potential sources with high risk of misinformation on COVID pandemic identified in the study were family members and friends, social media, village people, and information from grandchildren. So all these sources are arguably potential sources of misinformation and lead to high level of mismedication, because once the misinformation comes in, it will create fear and panic. And once that sets in, the people look elsewhere, anywhere to protect themselves from dying. And that is what really comes in. And we can see that the misinformation, there are so many conspiracy theories already in the system. I think let me leave it here. I'll explain when I get to the next, other ones, the subsequent ones. So we saw that perceptions were very close to the perception that the people were having for COVID-19, because now you have gotten where you get your information will be equivalent to the perception that you get it. So once you get some wrong information, definitely it will affect your perception. So let's see what they said. Some of them were calling COVID-19 as a deadly disease. So it means that when you get it, it means that you are dying. And another also said that it's a high form of flu that kills people. So they are always saying that COVID is, once you get it, your last resort is death. And then COVID is a dangerous flu that kills so many people. These are some of the things they were saying. It's a sickness. Another funny one was a sickness made in China to kill us. These were some of the things that rural folks were saying. And others were also saying denialism. They said, I don't think COVID-19 exists, so it's no more there. So like, especially the Chinese one, the issue of Chinese one, it goes with the laboratory of Wuhan, conspiracy theories and those things. So these are some of the things that are surrounding these things. And, it has also been declared by Lancet, one of the directors of Lancet, that misinformation has been the biggest challenge in rolling out any response strategy to combat this COVID-19. So it means that misinformation it's really a big thing. So which must be really worked out for. Okay, so now we saw that some of the plants they were using, and then because of the fear, they were resorting to so many plants. And the dangerous part that I saw was that they were mixing these herbal medicines, and they don't even know the dosage, how much to even prepare, and all these things. So they were just mixing them. Even some of the people are even mixing traditional medicine. I mean, the conventional ones that we know, which are sold in drugstores and other things, with these herbal concoctions, all in the name of treating themselves and preventing themselves from COVID-19, which is creating a very big problem which needs to be looked out for. So we concluded that there's high levels of misconception and misinformation and then mismedication in Lesotho, and that something should be done about this. The government should look for strategies to send proper message to the people to do away with this misinformation. If not, it's going to create so many problems which we cannot, and it will also affect any strategy or the response measures that the government will take to really treat people in this country. That is Lesotho. Thank you very much. And these are my references. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Christopher Sagoe. You open it's not a paper, it's a book, because there is so many cases of misunderstanding or miscommunication, and that's really communication is not a pillar of crisis management, but without communication, it's impossible to deal properly with the crisis. So let me introduce now the next speaker. Our next speaker is Professor Meen Chhetri. He's belonging to the National Center for Disaster Management, and our colleague and very honorable TM's member and TM's director will present a paper on the growing need of preparation in disaster risk reduction. Of course, Meen, if I well read your abstract, you will talk about the three pillars of crisis management. First one is, in my opinion, structure and prevention. Second one is on bodies responding and preparedness for body responding. And the third one is maybe communication, but also the place of the citizen in the crisis. So thank you in advance for this very interesting paper, Professor Meen Chhetri, and the floor is yours for 20 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jean-Paul, and greetings. Good afternoon, good evening from Nepal to everybody. So the title of my presentation is The Need and Importance of International Cooperation in Disaster Management. Before I begin my presentation, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the team's president, Mr. Harold Drager, and yourself, Colonel Jean-Paul Monet, French Fire Service, and all others who are involved in the organization of this great event. It would have been much better if we could join it in person, face-to-face in France, but unfortunately due to this corona, we could not do it. Maybe next year or sometime somewhere. Okay, if we see the data of disasters all over the world, if you have seen the report of IFRC 2020, then it says that in the past 10 years, 83% of all disasters triggered by natural hazards were caused by extreme weather and climate-related events such as floods, storms, and heat waves. The number of climate and weather-related disasters has been increasing since the 1960s and has risen almost 35% since the 1990s. So it is in increasing trend. The proportion of all disasters attributable to climate and extreme weather events has also increased significantly during this time, from 76% of all disasters during the year 2000 to 83% in 2010. So in each decade, you see, we have rise in extreme events. And these extreme weather and climate-related disasters have killed more than 410,000 people in one decade in the past 10 years, from 2010 to 2020. So the vast majority in low and low middle income countries, heat waves, then storms have been the biggest killers if we see the global data. A further 1.7 billion people around the world have been affected by climate and weather-related disasters during the past decade. These are major disasters, but we have many more other disasters. We all know it. So now, this picture is from the recent flood and landslide disaster in Nepal in July 2021. So many people were killed. So we lost nearly 400 people in this summer disaster, basically due to the flood and landslide disaster. So now let us see what are the major reasons of increase in disasters. We all know it. Okay, the major reasons for increase in disasters are as following, like developed media reporting. Means earlier we didn't have social media or mobiles or other advanced equipments. That is why now if anything happens, even in the remote, rural and hilly areas, we immediately know that what is happening. So that is why the disaster data we can have in our database. So that is one of the reasons that why we have increasing number of disasters. And another problem, we all know that that is increased population and density, particularly in developing countries and particularly in urban areas, because people are living in are not living in rural areas. Rather, they prefer to live in city areas for employment, education, health, and many other things are the reasons why they are leaving the rural areas. And also another reason is that we have cities in high-risk areas. Data show that 64 of the largest cities in the world are in seismic zones. And many other cities are either on the bank of a river or on seashore. That is why we have many other disasters like typhoon, hurricane, tsunami, and so on and so forth. And rapid and unplanned urbanization is also another problem. And as I mentioned earlier, people are not living in villages. They rather prefer to live in cities for employment, education, and health. So that is why when there are many people and many things and many infrastructures together, then of course we have various kinds of disasters. And global warming, climate change, we all know it. I also mentioned earlier, according to the disaster report of 2020 of IFRC, it shows that there are many disasters due to climate and weather-related disasters. And another reason for increase in disasters is increased technologies, because we have mass transport, we have highways, and we have motorways, railways, and we have air traffic, increasing air traffic, and we have chemical industrialization, and the vehicles are transporting dangerous goods, so they also cause disasters. And another reason we can say is economic stress, because in big cities, you see, we have urban slums in dangerous environments. In cities like in India, even in Nepal also, you see, in capital city of Nepal, in Kathmandu, 15-20 years before there were no slum areas, but nowadays we have 15-20 slum areas in various parts of the city, and they live in dangerous situation. They have the security problem, they have health problem, they don't have well-developed infrastructure. So various kinds of disasters occur over there. And also armed conflict is another reason of increase in disasters, like terrorism. We also experienced for 10 years between 1995 to 2005, and in various parts of the world from time to time we have armed conflict. And now currently we had in Afghanistan. And another reason, of course, we all are experiencing now is COVID-19. This corona disaster has impacted all over the world. All the countries have been impacted directly and indirectly. And there is more than 700,000 life lost. So these are the major reasons why disasters are in increasing trend. This is also another picture from recent disaster in Nepal in July in Melamchi area. Is about 50-60 kilometers from the capital city Kathmandu, where many people were killed and one small city was swept away due to this flood, monsoonic flood. And now, if we discuss about the consequence of disasters, then we can find that they have the impact on water security, water, food, livelihood, health, and energy security. And all these actually result into the economic, social, political, and survival issues of the people that are strongly correlated with poverty. It means poor people are much more affected, are much more impacted by various types of disasters. And we are paying the cost of disasters by losing precious human lives, and we have injuries and illness, and people have loss and grief after the disaster, after big disasters. And another cost is economic cost, which is tangible, which is tangible or actual cost, or which we can see, which we can assess. But we also have intangible costs, like if somebody is lost and is in loss and grief, or if he has lost his broke his hand or leg, or is physically damaged, then we cannot assess how much loss is occurred. So there are tangible and intangible loss due to the disasters, and therefore we need international cooperation and coordination to enhance the to reduce the disasters all over the world. Okay, because you see, in these days, local, national, regional, international, continental, and global cooperation and coordination are very important in disaster risk reduction. If we work together, a proactive plan could be formulated for disaster management activities among the various countries. And disaster management is the cornerstone on which effective cooperation and coordination depend. Sharing of experiences and exchange of views among the experts of different countries will definitely result into fruitful outcome, which may be used for disaster prevention and mitigation all over the world. We know it, but sometimes we have a problem among the countries. However, scientific and disaster mitigation organizations should try to develop working relationships based on mutual trust and the recognition of differing characteristics, goals, and needs. Because it is an established fact that regular contact among the different groups before, during, and after the disasters can greatly help to develop contacts among the countries, which will ultimately help for disaster mitigation organizations, and they can take advantage of opportunities to work together to provide relevant training for the emergency management personnel to enhance disaster mitigation, relief reports, and the relevance, quality, and accuracy of reporting about the disasters and the result of our efforts to affect them. In this way, international cooperation is highly desirable, but we have sometimes problem among between some countries which we need to solve. Why we need international cooperation? This corona, you see, COVID-19 also has shown that we need to work together in good harmony and cooperation. It has taught a great lesson to all the nations of the world. So we should learn a lesson from this COVID-19 also. And actually, disaster management, we all know that is a multi-sectoral activity. and it needs wide range of contacts and connections among the countries, because a single person, an individual or organization cannot do all disaster management works, and working in isolation actually will not be productive. Therefore, joint affiliation or cooperation among countries is very important, and collaboration, cooperation, and coordination within the countries across the regions are crucial for effective disaster risk reduction. Because if we work in good harmony, then if there will be any problem between the countries, or if there will be any disputes, then they can be solved easily by mutual understanding, by bilateral talks, and by making different agreements between those countries who have some problem. Therefore, mutual understanding and support is the key to bringing development. And international cooperation plays a vital role in enhancing the communities to protect their environments and encouraging state actors as well as to fulfill their duties for conservation initiatives. And if the countries that work together in good harmony may put their resources and then they can develop faster. It involves creating, adapting relationships, also appropriately utilizing most of the existing resource capabilities. And to reduce vulnerabilities, we need to network our capabilities and available resources, knowledge, and expertise. And now I would like very briefly talk about this Sendai framework, because Sendai framework is a very important document for international cooperation and collaboration. I think we all know about this. Because many countries have signed the Sendai framework. That's why, being the signatory to the SFDRR, countries are committed to achieving the 4 priority strategic targets and 38 indicators for measuring progress on disaster risk and losses. Earlier, we had HFA, Hyogo Framework of Action, 2005 to 15, for 10 years, and now we have 15 years SFDRR. And there are 38 indicators of Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, which align with the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. Both are very important documents. And the countries, they need to go through systematic and institutional to achieve the above targets and indicators. Therefore, they have important role in global initiatives on disaster management. So this is actually a guiding principle, SFDRR, and if the countries will follow the 4 priorities and these 38 indicators and the guiding principles, then that will be beneficial to reduce the disaster risks in the respective countries. And here I would just like to show you a diagram. This is actually at the micro level, means at the local level, we have a civil protection and humanitarian agencies, we have media, we have scientific and technical services, we must have academia and research, and there should be financial risk transfer, and there should be sectoral planning. This is a sketch for effective and for effective coordination and collaborations at the local level, at the state level, and at the national level also. We can use this diagram. This is just a sample diagram. And now I would very briefly mention how we can enhance international cooperation. Actually, we can enhance international cooperation by following means, like making links among countries, doing things in an organized way, and by clarifying the objectivity. We should highlight our objectives which are beneficial for the participating countries, and we have to establish goals, and we have to analyze our requirements, and we have to assess our skills and infrastructure, facilities, and resources. And apart from all these things, there should be strong commitment, dedication, honesty, and timeliness among the countries. If one works in good faith, and if another one doesn't work, then the relation will be broken. So that is why we have to work in good faith and harmony. And the problem, you see, the main problem is that everyone wants to coordinate, but no one likes to be coordinated. Means they talk high, but in practice they do less. That is the problem. So the way forward is that, as I mentioned earlier, cooperation and coordination at the national, regional, and global level is highly desirable. And the above initiatives, which are highlighted by SFDR and various other national and international documents, can be taken as a strategic reference point that we can follow, because SFDR highlights the importance of strengthening cooperative and interactions among various stakeholders and promoting volunteer partners. And the disaster management policies of each and every country should be redirected towards poverty and vulnerability, because I earlier mentioned that the food, water, and energy security have a great impact in poverty. So we have to take into account the problems of vulnerable people who are living in grave situation, who are in poor condition, and who are whose economy is very bad. So because mere compensation and immediate relief doesn't help the poor people. We have to be proactive, not reactive, because in developing countries, mostly in developing countries like Nepal, the government are reactive. You see, whenever there is disaster, then they go for search and rescue, and they provide food and shelter for a few days, and then after they forget everything. And this is the result of poor preparedness and poor rehabilitation and reconstruction. That is why we must have proactive legislations as well as proactive activities carried out by various DRR-related organizations. And also, it is necessary to involve coordinated activities of a range of organizations to contribute to disaster risk reduction within and across all levels of government and society. Because the central government cannot take care of all disasters if it happens in the districts or in the local level. That is why we have to strengthen the all layers, all levels of government. For example, in Nepal, we have a federal government, we have provincial government, and we have local government, and also district government. So all these four layers have to be strengthened for effective disaster risk reduction. So again, coordination is a development and good governance issue. That is why we have to take into account all these issues. Therefore, disasters should be viewed as the issues of development and governance. And states, all the countries should be made receptive, profound, and accountable to the demand of the people and the rights of disaster-prone communities, areas, and affected population. This is my last slide. So now this is very important that this is high time for us to bring together the organizations and institutions, and we have to ensure a pragmatic preparedness, and we have to carry out effective response, and not only response, but we also have to carry out, we have to do preparedness, recovery, rehabilitation, reconstruction, everything. We have to take care of the whole cycle of disaster management. And all these things are mainly concerned with systematic acquisition of application of resources in accordance with threat or impact. And to attain the strategic goals and indicators of SFDR, I mentioned it earlier also. So it is essential to build up a network of partnership among the countries and the governmental organizations, NGOs, academic institutions, and community members. And finally, coordination is for mutual benefit. The best coordinator must enhance coordination, and coordination is to build relationship over time. Thank you very much. I have finished my slides.
Thank you so much, Meen Chhetri. Thank you for this important and very holistic view on what are the needs to improve the international cooperation to be better in crisis management. I don't see any questions in the Q&A tool. Is there anybody who wants to set a question? Another question maybe to Christophe Sagoe. The question is about in Lesotho or in other countries, how do you imagine to give this correction, this adaptation to a good communication during the crisis, to give to avoid fake news, to avoid misuse of the material of the medicines? How do you? Is there a planning? Is there a new deal? How do you? Is there a planning? Is there after these lessons learned of COVID? Do you foresee a social network or something to inform the person, maybe TV or I don't know, radio communications, to inform properly the citizen?
Okay, thank you very much. To the best of my knowledge, there's nothing like this. That is why I even in the introduction, I raised it as one of the issues that attention has been placed on fixing the economy, making sure the GDP is corrected, making sure people who lost their jobs and other things get back to work and whatever. But there has nothing and completely nothing has been done about this. So this work is to bring to light that this is what is happening, and these things have effects on even treatment. And at the same time, this misinformation even have effects on the response strategies the government himself has put in place. So there is the need to quickly come in and fix this. And
dear Christopher, you have a second question in the chat, which is from our Indian friend, Professor Vinod Chandra Menon. What is the percentage of the population fully vaccinated in Lesotho? Could you say it? Have you got it or not?
Yes, the vaccination is not, the population is about 2 million, and so far the vaccination is not even up to 20%. They are still, because people still have those issues, I mean, misinformation. People are saying from religious background, they are saying, you know, when you inject, they are taking you to hell. When you are, so it has been very difficult. The government is doing his best. Now he has even instructed, you know, those working in the public sector to get vaccinated. They have started with the military, the police, and other things that if you are not vaccinated, they will just kick you out. So they are using all these things to push people to really get vaccinated. But as a stand, people are not interested in the vaccine.
So thank you so much. There is this reluctancy we also had in Europe, maybe more than by you, but it's a real problem. I have a suggestion. This morning we had a connection disruption with our Canadian colleague, and I see that Dave Waterhouse is now online. So I propose you to shorten the question session to introduce Dave Waterhouse for his speech on economic issues of crisis management and in prevention. That's also interesting. And I will give a restricted time to Dave to give us an overview. That's my idea. So I would like to give Dave 10 minutes, if it's possible, to maybe 15 minutes to stop before 3:30, then to have a very short coffee break, and to start quite immediately after for the last session. So Dave Waterhouse, I hope you are ready. I introduce you very quickly, saying that you are with François Delorme. You are doing some studies on fire management and fire department added value, economic value. And now you produce some papers on the value of prevention. So during the time you share your screen, I ask Meen, have you got a question? I saw raised hand, but not yet. So
sorry, it was by mistake. Sorry.
Okay, good. So Dave, the floor is yours. If you can present very quickly an overview of your studies on prevention.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Monet. So thank you, everyone. Again, sorry. So I will present to you today the economic impact of fire departments' operational activities. The main goal was to estimate the value of what was saved by firefighters. We did, Monsieur Delorme and I did a couple of economic impact studies. First for the operational activities, which we did starting from the one with Phoenix. And then we did Montreal, Lévis, and Sherbrooke. And this is the summary table, which presents the results of all the operational impact activities, economic impact studies that we did. So you can see there that there was the Phoenix, Orange County, Florida, Montreal, Lévis, and Sherbrooke. So we did like commercial building fires, the return on that in job savings, and the overall impact on the GDP, also CRA patients, and the conclusion. So the new study, it focuses on fire prevention investments. So how can we say that preventing fires has an economic impact? There's also a social impact on that by preventing fires and lowering down the number of deaths. So there were two parts in the study. It was to measure the economic value of fire prevention for a municipality in the risk reduction for disaster in residential building. The second part was to focus on the social consequences of investments in fire prevention, able to reduce the impact on the social variables in building fires. There were two case studies. One was City of Laval, population 425,000, 9 fire station, 300 paid firefighters. So this is the result that we see there. You can see the graphic. The red line is the prevention investments in dollars. Prevention being, investments being the overall cost in active passive fire prevention in building codes. So this is all the fire protection in buildings, which we call prevention, active passive prevention. And there's the discretionary prevention investments, which are all the activities that fire prevention service, like door-to-door inspections, open house at fire stations. These are all discretionary activities. We take them both together and it gives you the red curve, and the green curve is a property assessment in billions of dollars, which goes up. And this is really a statistical exercise that we did. So we've come up with a really strong correlation, robust and strong correlation between investments in prevention and the overall increase in property assessment in billions of dollars. And we came up with, where's the economic impact in there? Well, we can see that a 1% increase in prevention investments, about $2,270, contributed to increase the net property value of 0.5%. So this is for Laval. We had another fire service, La Matapedia, which is pretty different. There's 17,500 population, 6 fire stations, 81 part-time and 8 paid firefighters. But look at the square kilometer of territory, 5,376. It's pretty different. But we saw the same robust and strong correlation between the two. Again, there was an overall increase in property assessment in millions of dollars, and there was an increase in prevention investments. Prevention investments can be also hiring people. So, and again, we saw a 1% increase in prevention investments, approximately $341, led to a net increase in property value of 0.2%. So this is what our study came up with. So there's a summary table there's also a social benefit part. So we analyzed what was the social benefit of that 1% of increase in fire prevention investments by the number of deaths that's going down. We increased also the number of evacuees in building, because the building is better protected. There's detection systems, there's everything. So there are more evacuees and less death per fire in all the buildings. So you have the summary table there. You can see the average budget equivalent to 1%. The third column is the economic benefit and preservation of average property value. And the fourth column is the social benefits. As you can see, City 1 is Laval. number of evacuees go up, number of injured civilians go up, number of deaths go down, number of injured firefighters go down also. For the other city, the number of evacuees go up, the number of injured firefighters go down. And the last two, well, they were a surprise for us also. The regional labor market went up 10% as we invested in the increase in fire prevention investments. There's medium income from region also that went up for 3%, which this is the we still can explain them as of today. And there was also an exploratory section, additional calculation of the economic benefit of fire prevention and operations for a fire service. There was the SIL equation, ratio of property saved, Mr. Sailors, which presented also earlier today. And there were also a lot of discussions with key players in the insurance industry in Canada and the United States. In the end, and I'm concluding with that, Monsieur Monet, there are three key messages that everyone has to, with all the studies that we did, there are three key messages that we need to leave with you guys. The one is clean and robust data is the cornerstone of any economic and social benefit impact study. So data is the key here. If you don't have a database, strong set of data, we can't analyze, we can't go anywhere. So, and standardization is the key in order to benchmark one fire service or one state from the other. The second is fire service have an economic impact on global jobs and GDP by one, preserving businesses in case of fire. And the second one is resuscitating CRA patients, if you take into account the value of a statistical life. And the third one, with the study that we just did, this is a new study with the economic and social benefit of fire prevention. Fire services have an economic and social benefit in their communities by one, lowering down the number of fires, preserving the increase in the overall net property value. Again, remember, this is the statistical exercise that we did. There's direct and strong, robust correlation with an R-square of about 0.92. Reduce, and the third one is reducing civilian deaths and firefighter injuries. So we thank the following: the International Emergency Management Society, Quebec's Ministry of Public Security, Quebec's Association of Fire and Civil Security Managers, Canadian Association of Fire Chief, Montreal, Laval, and La Matane-Bettia Fire Departments. So that's it for the presentation. I did it as quickly as I could, Monsieur Monet. Oh, it was okay for you?
Thank you so much. The second lessons learned is that fire service have a huge job with much work, but they can do quick. Thank you so much. That's an interesting paper to be reviewed, to be found probably in the conference proceedings, and I hope there will be some consolidation, because you conclude on some very surprising items. I mean, the preservation of the increasing of the net value of the structures. That's not obvious, and that's totally new, and that's very interesting. So I hope that there will be again and again studies to consolidate or to contradict some items, but that's also my wish in France, in Europe. So thank you so much being quickly. I suggest if somebody want to pose questions, they raise them by the Q&A tool or writing directly to Mr. Waterhouse. And I give you a small coffee break of 10 minutes, and we will be back at 3:35.